Welcome back to the deep dive. We had a lot of requests from you asking us to uh, really unpack what's happening with sports in Nepal in 2025. And honestly, the source material you shared, it gives us this incredibly detailed picture of just how dynamic things are. So our mission today is to get past the headlines. We want to analyze the highlights. We'll look at cricket, its huge dominance, the passion around football, and then dig into some really fascinating trends, everything from traditional games to digital competition.
Yeah, and what really jumps out from the research is that this isn't just about scores or medals. The material shows a sports culture that's, well, fundamentally shifting. It's driven by this interesting tension, between deep cultural roots and very rapid modernization. We're seeing sport become this powerful engine for social growth and, maybe most importantly, providing real, growing career paths for young Nepalese.
Okay, let's start unpacking that. And we're better to begin than with the undisputed champion of popularity. Cricket, the data we have confirms it.
Right.
Still the most popular sport.
Absolutely, no question. And it's not just holding steady, it's making huge strides. We're seeing the national team competing really strongly in major ICC events, and the crowds they pull in, colossal.
And that success seems to be filtering down, you mentioned careers.
That's the fascinating part. Historically, maybe sport was seen differently, but cricket is now explicitly mentioned in our sources as a serious, viable career, a growing one, too.
How's that actually happening? Is it government support or?
It seems to be more about private investment, actually, particularly in the domestic franchise system. That's really key to understanding the shift.
Okay, so how do we measure that specifically? Is it just perception changing or are we talking actual money?
Oh, actual money. One really striking finding in the sources points to something like a 40% increase in average domestic player salaries just in the last 2 years.
40%, wow.
Yeah. And it's not really coming from government funds. It seems to be driven by private franchise owners, those TV rights deals getting more lucrative and more domestic companies sponsoring leagues like the Everest Premier League. That fundamentally changes the math for a young player thinking about cricket.
And for inspiration, I guess you have figures like Sandeep Lemishane. His international success must play a role. He shows what's possible.
Exactly. He provides that spark, that aspiration, but the engine, that's the EPL, the Everest Premier League.
Right.
It's just invaluable because it creates a professional environment day in, day out. It brings in foreign talent, too, through quotas, which forces the local players to raise their game.
So it elevates the standard.
Precisely. It's where that raw talent gets refined. It becomes international grade skill. It's the indispensable testing ground.
That structure makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Okay, let's pivot now from cricket to the global game, football.
Yeah.
It definitely commands fierce loyalty, maybe even more passion among younger people, even if it doesn't quite have cricket's overall national reach.
And you see that passion reflected in the domestic structure. The Martyrs Memorial A-Division League is still the absolute top tier in Nepal. It's the bedrock.
And within that league, you have these, historic rivalries that keep things intense. The sources mention Manang Marsyangdi Club and Three Star Club specifically. What's their significance?
Well, they're not just clubs. They're institutions. Historical titans, really. They carry the tradition of Nepali football. Their rivalry is legendary. Matches between them often pull the biggest crowds outside of the national team games. They kind of embody that history, the struggle, the dedication. Their success really sets the standard domestically.
But the love for football in Nepal goes way beyond the domestic scene, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The passion for leagues like the Premier League or La Liga is incredible.
It really is. And that global connection is important. It normalizes those high professional standards. And this is where the data gets, really encouraging. We're starting to see young Nepali players genuinely getting opportunities abroad, successfully getting them, which suggests that the scouting networks and maybe agent pathways are maturing.
So it validates that dream of a proper international career. Is this mostly in nearby countries or is it wider?
It seems to be broadening out, driven partly by the domestic league getting better, catching the eyes of scouts from further afield. This growth, this pipeline, it's solid proof that football's appeal is accelerating, especially with the youth who now see a realistic path to playing professionally outside Nepal.
Interesting. So connecting this to the bigger picture, it suggests Nepal is developing higher quality athletes generally. But what about beyond cricket and football? What else is happening in the sports culture?
This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit complex. You start seeing things like tradition versus urbanization playing out. One thing that struck me was kind of geographic bias emerging in the data.
Okay, let's talk about that. Especially when you consider, and this genuinely surprised me reading the sources, that volleyball is the official national game of Nepal. Yeah. Why is it still so loved, particularly in rural areas, but seems overshadowed in media and sponsorship compared to cricket and football?
Well, volleyball's national status comes from its accessibility, you know? You need minimal gear. It's just deeply woven into community life, especially outside the big cities. It's pure tradition. But the challenge, which the data implies, is that the investment, the infrastructure development, the stuff that attracts media attention, that's still heavily focused on urban centers like Kathmandu.
Hmm.
So it creates this disparity. You might have huge amounts of talent in rural areas excelling in volleyball or even athletics, but they're potentially underserved despite the cultural weight of those sports.
That makes the whole diversification story even more layered then. Because we are seeing growth in things like badminton and athletics, especially in schools, which builds a base for the future. But the fastest growing category seems to be something totally different, driven entirely by the younger generation.
Oh, absolutely. You want pure modernity in Nepalese sport right now. Look at esports.
Yeah.
Online competitive gaming. Its rise among Gen Z is, well, you can't overstate it. It's a completely new landscape. It's decentralized. It's potentially very lucrative.
How big are we talking? Is this just casual gaming or is it becoming more formal?
It's definitely becoming formalized. It's dominating youth leisure time, their viewing habits too. And given Nepal's mobile penetration is so high, the ecosystem is really built around mobile games. We're talking battle royales mainly, like PUBG Mobile, Free Fire. Local tournaments are popping up everywhere, and they stream them on YouTube, on Facebook, and they draw massive audiences, sometimes honestly rivaling smaller traditional sports events in terms of viewers.
So this isn't just fun and games. It's creating digital stars, digital careers, prize money, sponsors.
Precisely. And this really rapid kind of organic growth of esports happening right alongside that deep traditional love for volleyball. It just hammers home the main point. Nepal's sports culture is broadening out, no doubt about it. It's pushing into old traditions and brand new digital arenas, really challenging that dominance of just cricket and football.
Speaking of cutting edge, let's shift focus slightly to the hidden enabler behind a lot of this, technology. How is tech actually changing how games are played, but maybe more critically, how they're managed, coached, and even watched?
Well, the accessibility point is fundamental. Live streaming is now the crucial link, you know? For fan engagement, it lets fans watch games easily on platforms like YouTube, various apps. It basically removes that old geographical barrier. You don't have to physically be there anymore.
And more eyeballs mean more sponsor potential, right? Which feeds back into those player salaries we talked about. It's like a virtuous cycle powered by digital.
Exactly right. But tech's impact goes deeper than just watching. It's about performance, too. The most sophisticated finding we pulled from the research was about professional adoption. The sources clearly indicate that AI and data analysis are actively being integrated into coaching methods.
Okay, how advanced is this? Are we just talking spreadsheets, or is it genuine high-level performance analysis?
No, it's becoming quite sophisticated. It's professionalizing the whole training environment. We're seeing clubs use video analysis software, you know, breaking down opponent tactics. But more than that, they're integrating biometrics, tracking player fatigue, hydration levels, recovery times. One source even shared an anecdote. A coach using this data mainly to figure out optimal rest periods, noting that before, training was often just about pushing through sheer grit, not really based on quantifiable data.
That's a huge shift, moving from gut feeling to biometrics. That really brings Nepalese sport management up to modern international standards.
It absolutely does. It shows the focus is on maximizing performance, maximizing efficiency across all these emerging professional sports. And looping back to the youth trend, the rise of organized esports, these mobile gaming tournaments. It just validates technology's role as a creator of totally new kinds of sports entertainment and competition. Tech isn't just helping old sports, it's defining new ones.
So let's try and wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's recap the key takeaways defining Nepal's sports scene in 2025. First, it's absolutely still defined by cricket's dominance. But that dominance is now supported by a much more professional domestic system like the EPL, which is creating real lucrative career options.
And right alongside that, you've got this accelerating passion for football. You see it in the strong history of domestic clubs, but also, crucially, in that growing trend of young players actually getting pro contracts overseas. Success in football seems increasingly linked to that global path.
Then there's the diversification piece, which is fascinating because it creates that tension between tradition and modernity. You have volleyball, the national game, hugely important culturally, especially rurally.
And at the same time, the explosive, almost bottom-up growth of esports among Gen Z, mainly in the cities. A completely different world.
In underpinning all of this, every success, every trend is modern technology. From simple live streaming that boosts money and visibility.
Right through to sophisticated AI and data analysis, helping coaches push performance and keep players safer.
The sources really do flip the script on what success in Nepalese sport looks like now. They paint this clear picture of an ecosystem where sport is deeply tied to genuine career paths and modern tech savviness.
Which leads to, I think, a final, quite profound question. Given this rapid change, this aggressive drive for professionalism, for global connection, will this evolution eventually lift the international standing of Nepal's athletes across all sports? Could we see Nepal become a regional powerhouse in a whole variety of disciplines, not just the ones that dominate today? At the potential future. That's really something to watch.
Definitely something for you to mull over. Hopefully you now have a much clearer, well-informed view of the incredibly dynamic world of Nepalese sports in 2025.